You can start.
Yeah, so let me know when you guys if you can see my screen.
Yes, Resham, we sure can.
Okay, hi guys. I know I saw a couple of messages saying we weren't audible, but just a quick confirmation. Most of you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, interesting topic today, women in technology. And I think, I don't know if I will do justice to the topic, but I definitely want to share with all of you a few things that have been a part of my career journey. And, how and what I have been doing and see how much of it is applicable or what you can draw some insights or learn from my mistakes if possible. So I'll start off with a little bit of about myself. So my name is Resham Sahi. I grew up in a small town called Indore, not small by the size of the population, but definitely not a very well-known city like the bigger cities that we may know of. So it's in the central part of India, and there were a lot of things that happened in my early childhood, which were. Uh, hey guys, can you still hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so a lot of things happened in my childhood which were kind of very drastic, but let me talk about what happened once I started going to school. So I hope you guys can all see this picture. This isn't mine, but pretty close. So as I started school, I went to a really nice public school in Indore. And as I started going to school, which was in grade 1, because of my background, I had studied before coming to Indore. I had studied in Jalandhar in Punjab, and my primary language was English. It was not English, it was Punjabi. So I actually did not have a very fluent understanding or communication line. At a 5-year-old couldn't, I could still speak a lot, but not very fluently or other people could understand. So when I went to the school, my first reaction was, of course I was trying to keep up with everybody else around me. But what was really nice about the school is there were a lot of times when there were a lot of stage events that were taking place, and whether it was a elocution competition or it was even dramatics. And being a extrovert, I absolutely wanted to be a part of it, but at the same time, because I wasn't too comfortable or sure about my language skills, I was also very hesitant. So this went on for a couple of years, and then I finally told my mother about it, that, how I only wished I was a part of this. There was a play that was going to happen at the time, and I really wanted to be a part of it, not for any other reasons, but because I thought, with all the backstage fun and the makeup that went on at that time, it looked like it's the right thing to do. My mother could understand that, one of the reasons why I didn't want to do this is because I wasn't too fluent in the language and I wasn't too sure of myself. And she insisted that I should give it a try and take a small part where I was probably one of the children in the fifth or sixth row, which was not very visible or very prominent. But she insisted that I must take part in something that I really wanted to do. So I did build some courage, and I participated in that first play. And the thing that happened was, the person who was supposed to play a different character. So I was one of the children who was, going to come on stage, but it so happened that one of the persons who had a few dialogues to say in the play fell sick a couple days before the play happened, and then there was this scramble for substitution or for change. fortunately or unfortunately, I was that substitute that was supposed to say those two lines. And the fact that I can talk about this 35 years from that it happened should tell you that that incident is still very, very fresh or frightening in my mind. Um, but I did those two dialogues, and somehow I learned them. Of course, I knew them because we had practiced so many times. So that was the first time I actually went on stage and said something. So the reason for telling you this long story is, I realized that I had stage fright, but it was something that was in my head. And, that day onwards, I think there was a time when my mother told me not to participate in any more elocutions or plays because it was just that I was a slow starter, and once I got to it, it was really too much. I could do this for a living, or I thought I could do this for a living. So that's where I thought I should share this with you guys. Is again at that young age, I didn't really understand or realize what I was or wasn't doing, but it required a little bit of a nudge and a push, and then I truly found that it was all in my mind. So moving on, as I grew up again, I got married and I went to my mother. Like I said, I belonged to a small place. My mother was uh, very supportive of me, but at the same time, she would always tell me that I could go and do whatever I wanted to, but then it was there were some constraints around which I had to move around and figure out what or where I will be. So one of the things, her conditions for me to move out of the house was to get married. And fortunately I did. I did get married really, really early. And the first place I landed after I got married was in the Silicon Valley in California. So until then, I think life was, things went on. School was good. College was good. Getting married was exciting. Going to the US for the first time was exciting. Um, but then as I landed into the US, I realized a few things about myself. Firstly, I got bored at home. So I realized that I have to do something to get out of home. And two, I realized that I don't know what I have to do because I mean, not going out to work, but where do you go find work? What do you do about, letting people know what your skills are? I mean, it was definitely a tall task for me. So I did go about, finding out from my friends where, what were they doing, and they told me all types of things. Somebody was going out and taking some classes, or somebody was just trying to keep themselves busy and, going to all these social events. And one thing I found out with, a couple of friends I asked is they were going to some computer training institutes to understand and learn more about technology. Um, so I joined the gang. So I joined all of them at different points in time. And the training I went to was this small training institute, which kind of taught people around how to do, object-oriented programming and some basics. And one thing I heard in that training institute, somebody saying that they actually did take a test on one of the at the times CRMs used to be the hot deal. And what I remember from that is that one of the friends told me that they were going to write, or not one of my friends, but somebody in the class told me they were going to write a test for databases, and that's how they would get selected in an interview process. There was a written test that would happen, and that's how Siebel would decide, or Clarify would decide, if people are good for those jobs. So, so I again thought of writing that test, but at the same time I thought, I have just been learning object-oriented programming for 4 or 5 months, and people take computer sciences in their entire college, and that's how they land their first tech job. So I literally went out to write that test, not for anything else, but just because I thought I should just try it, and not because I believed that I will clear it. As things would happen, I think I wrote two tests. I wrote one for Siebel and I wrote one for Clarify, and the results of both of those tests was positive. I did clear both of those written tests, and I came home and I told my husband about it, and his reaction was he wasn't too sure if it was all correct. If I actually went for the test and if it really meant that I have landed a job. So yeah, I don't know what to make of it, but I think one thing I learned about myself is, I just didn't think I was good enough, while everything else told me that I was probably good enough. So again, it was a matter of my own mental block. I didn't have the confidence, or I didn't understand what I really knew and how good I really was, until I went in and did something to prove it to myself. And neither did people around me. So I guess I think it again goes back to, if I don't believe in it, I don't expect other people to believe in it. So moving on, I think this went on for some time, and I was happy in my job, and I had by the way, I had a tough job. I started as a tech support engineer. So by no means it was a less technical job than anything else, or anybody else. It was, I started at Siebel, and it was a really, really um, intense job, I would say, because everybody's problem was my problem, and being in tech support. And at the time, I think um, it was a lot of learning and a lot of late nights and a lot of again, understanding and thinking about how to solve the problems, and proving to yourself that yes, you were right for the job. After that went on for some time, I think one of my aspirations started to be that I want to be a manager. And I don't know where I got that bug from, but suddenly to me it looked like, as the first few years of my career, it looked like, oh, if you're a manager, everything is great. You can tell people what to do, and you just have more power, and everything just. I mean, that was the ideal goal in my mind. Is if I become a manager, the world would be a better place, and it would be a better place for me for sure, because then I'll have. I don't know. Then I just felt like it would be the ultimate. Gift, or the ultimate wish that I could have at the time, was to be a manager. So, I went on to try to, do things again to prove to myself that I was good enough to be a manager. I also tried a couple of consulting jobs, and there was one consulting job that I tried, which I want to clearly call out. Again, I was an individual contributor, wherein I always had this thing that I want to be a manager, but one of the things the account manager told me is, oh, if you make this account grow from a 5-member account to a 8-member account, maybe, we'll consider you to be a lead for the project. And that was very exciting and very, very encouraging at the time. And so I spoke to, I mean, I did all the things that a typical lead or a manager would do, is try to take charge, write emails, proactively tell the status of the project. And this was all a consulting project, so importantly, everybody wanted to know about it. And as a result, one of the things that happened in that project is I did connect with the sponsor of the project, and he kind of understood that I was trying to play this lead role, or the project role. And from there on, when he spoke, and when he and I spoke, spoke a couple of times, it came around that, there were two more other projects that he was looking at that he wanted to start off, and he wanted to know if we had the skills and our consulting firm had the skills. And before I knew, in a time span of about 4 or 5 months, there were three more projects that got started, and there were about 20 people from the consulting firm that I was on doing different things. But I think the important thing, again, the lesson that I learned from that is, in my mind, I thought if, the project grew from a 5 to 8 member team, and if I became a lead, it would be just so great, and that would be an ultimate achievement. And in 6 months' time, I knew I had a lot more in me, and I was just setting very low ball targets for myself, wherein I was just, yeah, I mean, when I think about it, I don't know, maybe the opportunity was 100 member team in that from that consulting firm in that setup, but it's just that, again, in my own mind, I had set up a very, very small goal for myself. So I didn't have an audacious goal. I didn't have a big enough charter that I looked at for myself. Um, so one of the learnings from that instance for me was that if your goal is not scary enough, then they're probably not big enough. So again, this is a very common theme and very common thing, even till date, that I see with some of my colleagues and some of my women colleagues in particular, is where it is about, I'm coming to work because I need a job. And that's often not the truth. For anybody to come and spend 8 or 10 hours at work, it's just not about their job. It has to be more than that. Otherwise, it's not, with all the things that go on at home and everything else that happens, it's not going to be exciting enough if it was just a job. So important thing is to recognize that and set some goals for yourself, which are big goals, um, wherein, exactly where you want to go and where do you want to reach. So if it's just a goal that you're going to get in 2 months, then again, that's a limitation of your own thought process. So I would say that's something to think about. Okay, so after all of this happened, the next thing that happened is I do have two grown-up daughters, now teenage daughters. So while, career was on and all these things were happening, family was in full swing as well. So there was, I had my first daughter, and yeah, I mean, I was 3 years into the job. I had my second one. I was probably 7, 8 years into the job. And when the second one was really young is when we decided that it was time to move from the US to India. And because I, took a break when my second one was born, I think by the time we relocated and we settled a little bit in India, it was almost about 5 or 6 months that I had not actually uh, gone out and gone out of the house for a 8 or 10 hour day. So the next thing after relocating is I did pick up a job. I joined Infosys and I started my work traveling to Electronic City. For those of you who are familiar, or those of you who are not, it's a place slightly outside of Bangalore, or it's a more like a suburb adjacent to Bangalore, I would say. And at the time, and this, I'm talking about 10, 15 years back, there was nothing. So the city existed only till a certain limit, and after that, if you had to go to Infosys, you had to travel at least half hour, 40 minutes to get to the campus, and likewise on the way back. So going out to work, leaving the leaving a 4 5 month old 4 month old child, and doing it after a span of 6 months where you have been at home all the time. Um, the obvious feeling was, what am I doing and why am I doing this? And being a mid-level manager at the time. So I think it was, just when I had just become a project manager. So it was a time, again, everything was sort of coming together, but everything was ripe at the time. So, work needed me, but so did home. And there were many a days where at least I was very conflicted and very not sure as to what am I doing, why did I choose this, or, is this really what I want? Um, I also will take you a little bit further on my journey, and somehow I think I survived those times. I think I would say a lot of it is to do with the support system I had at the time at home as well as at work. I think obviously positive colleagues helped me, but across the board, whether it was my manager, it was about people who I interacted with, I think they all remained positive that this will be fine. But the guilt kept coming on. In fact, I want to quote now that my kids are older, my younger daughter's school still called upon me to one of the parent teacher meetings, and her first comment was, I have not seen you the whole year, so I just thought, I'll have to send a special note to you. And what she told me about my child was not something I didn't know. So when I came home and I told my daughter that, this is what your teacher discussed with me, and surprisingly, my daughter commented saying, next time just let me know, I will take care of it, which I think was, a great sign. But, instead of guilt, what I realized is while I can feel all the guilt that I want, I think the reality of it is my children have learned to cope with my goods and the bads, and however I may take it, I personally, I feel sometimes I feel guilty, but sometimes I also feel proud that they're probably independent and they have learned a lot of things because they have been in those situations before. So it's, take it as you want it, but I think this feeling of guilt, which every time we convince ourselves that, we're doing the wrong thing, is something that we need to get over. And I'm sure it happens to my male colleagues as well. But with the responsibilities of the family, I think it hits women a little bit harder and a little bit more often. But the thing I would say is, there is light at the end of the tunnel. So at least that's what I can see now. Um, and that was my next emotion or next state of mind, is getting over it, getting over the guilt. Now, all this said, and all these phases passed by. So if you see this, if you can see my screen, I think, everything, if you see all the arrows, they all seem to be going in all directions. And I think, I can say that about myself as well. There are days when I'm thinking left, there are days when I'm thinking right. But there isn't ever a pattern to say this is how I'm going to lead my career or my life. It's always going to be a little bit ad hoc and a little bit, you'll take 2 steps up and then 1 step left and then 2 steps right. But the important thing I realized about myself is, again, as I talk to more and more of my colleagues and my friends, I think one thing out of all of these things that I mentioned to you about the different mental blocks and getting over it is, while those are all positive things to do, I think one of the learnings for me has been is that there are often times when I'm wrong. And that's a realization that I have consciously told myself to be open about in my mind, that there will be things which I will do wrong. And when I talked about guilt, or when I talked about being audacious, or when I talked about um, having a goal for myself which is larger, I think it's also important for one to understand that some of those things may not be the right things for you, and you are probably chasing the wrong things. So I think it's okay to recognize that you will be wrong on certain things, and it's okay to understand that you'll have to go back and correct them, and nobody has the perfect recipe. I just want to, end it here and take questions and answer anything I can to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Resham. It's been a great experience that you have shared with us. starting from your schooling days to your work experiences and how you have gone through the different phases of life. What you have learned from each phase, yeah, it's definitely what we all can connect with. I think most of the ladies would have gone through the same phases, and definitely it's very encouraging or a connect with us that we can also do it. And I think I could open the forum to questions now. But before I open the forum to questions, I already have some questions in the chat window. I would address those first and then we can go with the other questions, if that is okay.
Sure.
Okay. The first question I have from Suchita Mukherjee. She is looking for a job in Bangalore and she's had a career break of 9 months due to relocation and motherhood. And she's facing issues because it's due to a new city and she says this place offers more of a technical jobs and she's from a non-technical background. So her question is how should she go about with it?
Yeah, so I think, so again, Suchita, one thing I would tell you is that, um, see, you have done a self-assessment that you are taking, you're coming back from a career break, you have relocated, and this place offers more of technical jobs. While all of that may be true, I would say, at least my approach would be, I think your personal circumstances are what they are. I think you have to approach it and be extremely non bogged down by it, that you are going to go and find a job. Now, if it means that you will have to give 10 different interviews and try 5 different areas or 5 different things, so be it. But please do not assume that because you are in a new city, because you have taken a break, you're not getting a job. Because that's the first place where you will create a mental block for yourself and you'll stop trying. So it's my honest opinion is, don't do anything which, if anything tells you that you can't do it, please don't accept it. And it may take you a little bit longer. I think you have to be realistic about it as well. But I'm sure there is someone out there who's looking for a person like you. So it's just that you have to, go out, connect with more forums or find more places where you can champion yourself. But the last thing you want to do is to assume that you're not going to find something.
Yeah, got that question. Thank you. I'll just go with the next question.
Yep.
Okay. Josna says she has got 9 years of experience testing and HEPLM admin too. So she wants to know if there are any current openings for that.
Again, I I wouldn't know the answer to that question, to be honest. I'll have to look it up in at Naukri myself to figure out if there are openings for that. But again, I would be surprised if there aren't. I think it's just again about a matter of looking at outside and connecting with your network.
Okay, got that. Next question I have in the chat window is Manjula. She's got 14 years of total IT experience with 7 plus experience in project management. So she wants to know if again there are any openings for her.
Yeah, I think again, that is a lot of experience. So I'm sure there are, companies looking out for that. But one thing I do want to call out on this one is that I think some of the things, or one of the places where I often also find, um, especially women colleagues, getting a little bit off track or not following is, I think technology is a place which keeps evolving. And it's very important that as individuals in technology, we also evolve. So when I hear project management, right, I think project management as a discipline is great, but again, project management as it applies today is different from what it used to be 5 years back. So my only recommendation there would be to make sure you are upskilling yourself. So if, agile and lean, ways of working are some things that most companies follow now, it's important that you keep yourself upskilled to be relevant in today's market. So I would seriously recommend going for a Scrum or Agile training for her before actually looking out, because she might find more jobs and probably more satisfying jobs if she has those right skills, which is what the market demands.
Okay, Resham, got that. Uh, yes, I think that's all the questions I have in the chat window. So if anyone else wants to ask questions, you can unmute yourself and ask the required question.
Hello, Resham. This is Jashri here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jayashree, I can hear you.
Yeah. I worked for Motorola for 5 years, 10 months. That is almost 6 years. And then I have taken a break of 5 years. I had 2 kids right now, and I think that they can manage themselves now. The thing is, my work experience was in Python and testing, the Python scripting and testing. And I started the online courses since 2016. Means, do they consider the online courses certifications? I just refreshed my skills using online courses. Means, how would the discipline can help me?
Yeah, no, so I think, see, again, I would say that we definitely look at skills based on, it's not just about your experience, but it's also about a lot about the aptitude. So again,
Okay.
I think the important thing is you have to have the right analytical skills. In a lot of questions that we also ask when we go out for recruitment is we are looking for people with strong fundamentals and strong analytical skills. And as long as you are, someone who can focus on that, like you said, see, even today, I can tell you, in fact, I did an interview a couple of hours back. What we do find is the skill that we are looking for is hardly ever an exact match to the candidate that we look for. So it's always about, who's the best candidate and is this candidate capable of picking up some of these skills. So you'll never find a job or a situation where your skills match exactly, but importantly, if your attitude and your analytical skills are good and solid in place, I think you should have no problem.
Okay. The discipline has only openings right now.
It's not in my area, so I'll have to look it up, but that's definitely something that I can help you with to find more connects in the organization.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi Resham, this is Srividya.
Hi, Srividya.
Yeah, Resham, it was a wonderful, talk by you, and we found it very inspiring, and it kind of motivates us to do even better. So thanks for your speech, and I have a couple of questions. So first of all, when we say digital platform, yeah, just a little bit brief about myself. I have around 12 plus years of IT experience
Mhm.
with 10 plus and BI data warehousing. And I have worked as a project manager in the past, but now I have a career break of 4 years because of motherhood. So now I'm looking at joining back. So considering the gap and all of this, so would you suggest that I concentrate and do some of these agile scrum master courses and focus on the project management part, or since digital is picking up in a big way, so would you suggest that I do some of the courses on the technical front as well? So just want to hear your views on this.
Yeah, so I think, you first have to decide, Srividya, is what is it that excites you. So if like I said, set a goal for yourself and then work towards it. See, finding a job should never be the criteria for you to go back to work, because you'll find a job and if you don't like it, chances are you'll go back home and you'll never come back. So make sure you are, choosing something. So if project management is something that you feel excited about, then I would definitely suggest you upskill yourself and look at, more agile based training and scrum course certification. But if something like if your heart is in core data analytics and that's where you feel you get the kick out of, I'm sure there's some upgrading to do there as well, but then focus and do that, because when you return to work, see, the first few years are critical, because once you let go of everything or all the comforts that you were used to, it'll suddenly be overwhelming. So unless and until you enjoy doing what you're doing, it'll be very hard that, or it's unlikely that you'll continue or you'll not get bogged down. So my suggestion would be, think of the two streams, figure out what you really want to do, and then upskill yourself in that area.
Okay. And how would you, what about the Prince 2? How much of it is in demand compared to a PMP or, yeah.
Yeah, and I see, I like all these, new courses that come up, but I will tell you that, like I said, when we interview, we will have candidates who will have all certifications also, Prince 2, Scrum, Agile, Coach, Master, everything. At the end of the day, the way you get evaluated is not based on those certifications. I think it will be primarily what you have understood from those courses. See, I think Agile also, as a principle or as a methodology, there are many flavors of it. What do you understand from it and how do you apply it is a totally different. So getting the certification is great. It's important so that it's you feel more current, and you also understand what does it really mean from what you used to follow in a typical project management life cycle, how all of that has changed. So when people talk, even in the interviews, you at least are able to relate to what they're asking.
Right, right. True. And yeah, and the other thing, Resham, is this is a different question. For example, since some of us are coming after a break, so do the organizations, expect some kind of flexibility from us, in the sense that we be open to taking up a little bit of junior roles than what we were doing earlier, just because of the break, or maybe, negotiate a bit on the salary part, because of the break. Is that how it is being perceived, or should we, continue with whatever was our earlier roles and, speak about that and target those kind of positions only, or do we need to be flexible? That's my question.
Yeah, so I think absolutely you hit it. That's a great question, because I'll tell you honestly, again, it's in our minds. You have taken a break for 5 years or 6 years, the company doesn't really care. Why would they hire you? They'll hire you for your skills. How badly do they need those skills? That will determine as to where and how you get in. So it should never be a situation where you start cooking the story up in your mind saying, oh, I have had a 6-year break, so this is the best thing I'm going to get, this is the best job, this is the best pay, this is the only flexibility I can expect. I mean, all of those things are, again, I think they are huge mental blocks which you should never ever, before you get into an organization, please leave those aside and be clear of what is sustainable. See, that's the other thing I have found is, sometimes I have also had that experiences where we've hired women, but I think what happens is somewhere there is a disconnect, as in, they are not understanding. See, it will be hard. You have to accept that before you go in for a job. If you've been, Srividya, for example, if you've been out for 5 years, it will be a life change. So things
Right.
will be hard in the beginning. So you have to accept that and you have to understand that. The other very important thing I want to say, at least in this forum very openly, is, see, we want all the things as a woman leader, I think I can I can take liberty to say this is, we want to be evaluated at the workplaces like our colleagues, which really means we also have to work like our colleagues. I cannot say I want all the flexibility in my work timings or in my, something else. And at the same time, when it comes to appraisals, I cannot expect them to be appraised at the same level. Or, if I put in the hard work, I want to be appraised at the same way my colleague is being appraised. So I think it's an important balance that one has to strike, and an important acceptance in your mind that it will be a little bit hard initially. You have to, as you get into the workplace, understand that, go in with that position, and then figure out how you make it work for you. Because there'll obviously, 1 or 2 years in the organization, you will also figure out, organization will also figure out what is the most effective way to get this, get the
Right.
work done both ways.
Okay, but at the time of applying, so do we even apply for positions where it is slightly junior or maybe the pay is
No. No, I
slightly?
think as long as you have the skills for the job. See, I would totally go after the skills. In fact, I'll tell
Okay,
you, most companies are looking for people who can join immediately.
okay, okay,
So that is a big plus. I would say instead of being a negative, it's actually a positive that you can join the company tomorrow.
okay.
Most people cannot join for 2 months because that's the typical notice period. That so I think you have an edge as long as you have the skills for the job. See, if you don't have the skills, if you're gonna, for example, if 5 years you have been out and you want new technologies which you're not aware of, you won't need to learn them, then obviously, I think the people who are hiring you are also hiring you with that expectation that you take some time to ramp up. So I think there it becomes a different conversation. But if you have the right skills for the right job, I don't think, your being out on a maternity leave has anything, or your being out on any leave has anything to do with it.
Even for the salary part, you would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And also, Resham, if you can please elaborate a bit on the digital platform and what tools are involved in that as far as JCPenney is concerned.
Sure. So digital platform is, everything that we are using today in our e-commerce space, and it encapsulates more than e-commerce. So it's everything that we use from, your payment wallets to your, um, what do you say, all the e-commerce technologies that you use, all the AWS, the cloud enablement technologies, as well as all the open source that is out in the market, all of that constitutes digital platforms. And what it really means is, platforms which will not need, the heavyweight servers, and the infrastructure needs are pretty much going away as you think about software in the new age. And all of those technologies really come under the digital platforms umbrella. E-commerce is a subset of it, but there could be other things apart from e-commerce which are a part of digital platforms.
Okay. Does it encompass analytics and the big data part also?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Hi,
And what
Resham.
Hi.
typical, yeah, what are
Hi.
the typical tools that JCPenney is using for implementation when it comes
So
to that? Yeah.
Srividya, can we take this offline? I think there was another question. So let's have the conversation offline and you and I can connect and, talk about it a little bit at length.
All right, Resham. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot for insightful, yeah,
you're
inputs.
welcome.
Hi, Reshma. This is
Hi,
Astha.
Resham.
Hi.
Hi,
Hello.
I heard, yes. Yes,
This
Astha.
is Astha Nigam. Ma'am, I have 4 years of experience in manual testing as well as a few years of experience in automation testing as well. I have a
Mhm.
4 years of break. So after that, I'm trying to start again, once again. But the problem is that I'm not getting much call regarding my profile.
Yeah, so I think, again, I don't know what tools you have been using for, finding the jobs. Are you on Naukri jobs for her, or,
Yeah.
have you
I'm
tried all
using
of those?
Naukri. I enrolled on jobs for her, and but I'm not. Continuously putting all my effort, but I'm not getting any calls from the company. Though I have the skills of, like, I have automation testing skills in Selenium WebDriver. I have a good manual testing experience, but still no calls from the companies.
So I don't know, Astha, why that is happening, because I know there is a dearth of good automation QA across the board, and whoever I speak to, I keep hearing the reverse. So maybe again, I think we should connect offline, and why don't you send me, some of your details, and we can take it from there.
Shall I mail you the details?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can take it forward.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hi, Resham. This is Tanuja.
Hi.
So thank you so much for your speech. It was inspiring, and where I can connect is, as you were aspiring, even I aspire to be a manager, and I have total of 12 years of experience, out of which 9 years is into IT. Other 3 years is in a mechanical industry, and now I have a break of 1.9 years. I have 1-year-old kid. So now I'm planning to rejoin, I mean, start my career again, and I'm into testing. I was working as a QA lead, and now I'm getting calls for QA manager as well as lead, and most of them are for manager, since I have some basic knowledge on Six Sigma and Lean, and I've worked some of the projects as well. And my target was also to do a PMP when I'm on a maternity break, but it didn't happen. So I want your suggestion, which way shall I go? I'm interested in Six Sigma and Lean as well. Should I brush up more on Six Sigma and Lean, or should I do PMP? What would you suggest?
See, I think if you ask me honestly, I think the PMP days are, I mean, there are very few projects which still follow the PMP methodology, because I think in the new ways of working, at least most of the digital projects you will find are more attuned to the agile and towards the new lean frameworks of working. So my suggestion would be definitely looking at that, but also like you mentioned, I think also thinking through if you really want to go down the managerial path, or do you want to go down the project management path, because to me those are two different things.
Okay, I'm not that very technically, because my BE was in industrial production, and I'm into QA. So I don't know much of coding, so I don't think I can go in detail into technical. And I'm people management and little bit of QA related project management. I'm really good at, because I was deployed into a client place and I built a 5-member team to a 23-member team, wherein I could impress a manager, and we could build our parent company people over there. So I think that is my strength.
Sure. So I think then based on that, I feel that, do learn the lean way of proceeding, because I think even from a process and operation standpoint, that will probably give you more of an edge.
But for being a manager, should I be more into technical? I mean, for these days,
No. So
I'm
I
little
think
confused.
again, if you here are the things, right? If you want to be a good manager, what is most important is for you to understand people. But if you are going
Yeah.
down the project management path, then it is more important that you focus and understand as to what are the different pieces and how do they fit together. So I think
Okay.
that's really the difference between the two. And what I understood, or maybe I misunderstood, is that you are more leaning towards the project management cycle, since you're not too in depth with the technology. You are leaning more towards the people management side. But I think
Correct.
again, depending on which one you choose, you have to go a little bit deeper into that, and that's what I was trying to suggest.
Yeah, I was going through Penney website, and I was so overwhelmed to see that it's so women friendly. So I already applied for a testing job over there.
Okay.
So can you help me out to, I mean, at least get the interview? And also, is it exclusively for women employees? What the opening I saw, or is it open to everyone?
I think we did a special event, so you're probably referring to that along with Jobs for Her. We did a special event which
Correct,
was
correct.
to really
Yeah.
solicit more women folks in our workforce.
Okay, okay. Can you help me out in that?
Yeah, sure. So I will definitely, we can connect and find out, and we'll make sure that we look at your CV.
Yeah. Shall I send you the CV?
Yes, or if you can just ping me on LinkedIn, I'll make sure we do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, Resham. This is Deepa Karthikeyan.
Yeah. Hi, Deepa.
Just now, manager told that she also applied and she also waiting for it. Even I applied it. Not even I didn't get a call. I applied long back.
Okay, Deepa, I'll check back. And again, I don't know, what is the area you applied on, but I'll definitely have my HR have a look at it.
That's what it's related to, automation testing. I have 5 years of experience in the 3 years of development and Java J2E and 2 years in automation testing.
Okay.
And I have a 6 years of career break because I have to face the way which you've gone through when we are talking about all your experience. I was thinking about myself. Like when I was working, I was like, got a good appreciation and everything. So due to
Correct.
some personal things and everything, I have quit the job. Now, like I'm searching myself, like what I'm where I'm standing. So want to come up. So I feel like after the 6 years of break, my communication is not that much good. So for that, what I can do, remind explanation when I'm getting calls. Somebody told that manual testing they're not getting called in Selenium, but I'm getting so much calls. The thing is like after 6 years also I'm getting calls. But the thing is like I'm not able to clear that much actually. My communication is I feel like a little bit nervous, and the thing is like I'm unable to explain properly. It's not coming into my mind actually. Whatever the work which I did, so something like I feel like I'm blank.
Yeah, because you're nervous probably, and that's what it is, right? So if you go back to what I was trying to present, I think somewhere you're going through the same emotions is in your mind. First of all, first thing you have to get out of your mind is that your communication skills are not good. Because the moment you tell yourself that 5 times, even though they may be good, you force it on yourself that, when you're talking to somebody, you get nervous. So
Yeah,
it's important that you get it out of your mind and your system that your communication skills are not good. Because I mean, I'm speaking to you and I personally feel, if this conversation is easy for you, I think it is just that you're probably getting more nervous in your interviews or other calls, which is why you're feeling the pressure and you're probably not able to answer some of the questions. So I think my only suggestion to you would be, don't assume that your communication skills are bad. Just work on not getting nervous and say, kya hoga? Worst case that can happen is you'll not get the job. Well,
but
anyway,
definitely I
it is
have
what
a
it is. So
job.
it cannot get any worse.
Yeah, the thing is like desperately, I want to get a job. The thing is like now it's 6:36. I'm living. I want to prove myself, so I'm a little bit nervous about it. So
No, I understand, Deepa, and I think that is what is driving you, right? Like that's why. So the reason I'm telling you this is, if you assume you will not get a job, you will do much better in the interview, because then you will not be afraid. But if you tell yourself, I must get this job, then you kind of make yourself more nervous, and then the situation turns around. So I think it's important that in your own mind you say, okay, I'm going to give 5 interviews. Let's see. If I get something great, if not, I'll give another 5 interviews. It's okay. You have to keep trying till you get what you want.
okay. And the
Yeah.
thing is like we can keep in touch with you through LinkedIn or any other platform. Will not disturb you though. Like we got a chance to talk in job or anything. Just like though you explain your the path which you cross, something like if I fell down, I feel like I can talk or I can share something.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, I think this jobs for her creates a great platform for me also to get connected with all of you, because I think some of these struggles are very common. We all have gone through it. So at least we can draw energy from each other. And I'm sure there are more things which I will go through, which if I can draw energy from one of you, it will be great. So I think it's a great platform to connect.
Thanks a lot for the support.
Thank you.
Hi, Resham. This is Vinita here. Good afternoon.
Hi, Vinita.
Yeah. Resham, I have around 12 plus years experience in IT industry. So initially I started as a developer, then I was a manager. So I have experience both in Scrum and Agile because it came as a challenge and it was proved outstanding and we won the project. And I have experience in cloud computing as well because I had driven one project which was one pass. But now when I look out for project, what I hear is they are more technology oriented. So though I have taken up projects where I belong from web development, lab stack, but I have managed project with SharePoint and ATG, which was I had never developed any code on that, but I could manage successfully. But when I look out for new projects, they prefer more into Java, people who have hands-on Java managers. So is this that this industry standard is creating change in that way that they may need manager who should be hands-on in some
particular technology, then only they can drive the project as a manager? Because I have taken up a challenge and I have proved successfully that that is not the case, but I'm not sure if that is how today's industry follows.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think we are getting to a more and more specialized area. And, and since all of you are there on the call, I would also want to share this with you. I think, when I also started my career, and while I quoted that example, you could write a test and you could get into an interview and you could, get a job. I think where we are headed towards is, as agile and some of these new principles have also come in, the world has become very specialized. And what I mean by that is, earlier, if you remember, or if some of you who have been in the industry is, you would have projects which will run into hundreds of people, or, at least 30, 40 people in a project was a very normal thing to hear and to experience. But what has happened in the last 5 years is the projects have suddenly shrunken in size, and thanks to agile and some of these new principles coming in, now the teams are 4 or 5 member teams. Now when you have a 5 member team, obviously everybody has to pull their weight, then only that project will get delivered, because there is no more place to hide or to see whether you can be in a 40-member project. It was easy for 5 inefficient people to be hidden, but now in a 5-member project there is more pressure on each of those 5 people to do multiple roles and also be technically more astute. So some of this, the question that you asked, I think some of it is stemming from that, is where everybody is looking for more and more specialized skills. So it's important that to keep up with the times, one has to, do what is required. So you have to brush up and get into a more of either a domain or a technology that you're very well versed with. So I think people are also very appreciative of the domain. Like, we do so many interviews, I can tell you, is that when we are interviewing, we definitely look for people who have more of a retail understanding, because it is not easy for somebody who doesn't know retail to understand half the nomenclature, because we'll talk in short forms, for example. And that's just an industry-wide trend. What you'll see is, like, especially in telecoms, right? If you don't know what all the abbreviations are, it is impossible for you to understand and connect the dots and then be able to resolve things quickly. The other thing is, everything, nobody has time for anything, right? If you want to do a project in 2-week or 3-week sprints in agile, so you really want to come and hit the ground running on week 1, otherwise week 3 you'll not be able to deliver. So I think some of those are happening because of these changes that are happening in the industry, which are really dictating as to how quickly one is able to come in and make an impact. So some of the observations you have are very true, where people are looking at more and more specialized skills.
Regarding domain, I just wanted to make one point. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So, as far as I am concerned, I have worked on e-commerce, retail, banking, life
Mm-hmm.
science, and healthcare domains. So
Mm-hmm.
now, when you see this, what happened was, initially I was too much on e-commerce domains. But when I shifted to retail, so it was a sudden project which came in and I was plugged into that. So there are projects where we don't have times to understand the domain exactly, because we know the technology, we understand the requirement, and here we have to start working on it. Parallelly is that when we try to acquire the knowledge on the domain as well. So there are things which is happening like that. So we are able to deliver, and we are able to successfully deliver that kind of projects in different domain as well. For banking domain also, we were successfully able to deliver. And moreover, based on different companies, they have for domain related trainings, they have different things, a different setup. So, I mean, if we sit at home and if we try to understand that, we will not get the knowledge of what exactly in industry happens. Example, for even a language, if Node.js and AngularJS is something which is coming up in the world, Pivotal is something which is coming up in today's world for cloud, AWS or Azure. But if we learn also, the actual experience comes in when we work in a project. But for us, this is a big challenge, because we say that we are learning on it, but will the company consider that kind of scenario? Will they consider us that we will be able to take up the domain? Will they consider us that we will be able to take up the skill set? We will be able to manage, because from my side, I have proven my track records that I am able to do that. So is that a scenario where we can get an opportunity?
Vinita, I think you have a valid point, and this is the place where I think it'll hurt the most to people, people like us who have to take breaks because of various reasons. Because the reality of it is everybody wants the cooked meal. Nobody wants to wait. We are in an instant, world where everybody wants, the day you come in, uh, you want the outcomes or you want the results. And I think that's the one place where I'll agree with you. I think some bit of this hurts, but at the same time, I think, whatever based on your experience, what you think is where you have the most skills is where you should be focused on finding your next opportunity, because you probably land a better chance of finding yourself that next opportunity based on where you have the depth.
I'm inclined towards project management, but I am open to any technology because I say mostly solo technical management.
Vinita, I can barely hear you.
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Yeah, so I actually always played a role of a technical manager because I wanted to be a technical manager so that I keep on learning things. That's where the challenge comes. And then now if I want to take up a Java project and manage it is, so there are challenges where I hear answer that we need a particular Java manager because they only can understand. But my question is, when I know the OOPS concept, that is a base of Java. That is a
Correct.
base where my PHP comes in, where there is a base when C++ comes in. Then how can you say that I cannot manage? See, people management is different. Process management, delivery excellence, risk, defect, everything is different. But where
Correct.
in languages, I have sat with ATG people.
Correct. No, I agree with you. I think that's the place where I guess, I don't know where you had this conversation, but I think you have a valid point is that that's the place where companies also need to think.
Resham, I think we have lost Vinita for now. I'll just take three questions that are there at the chat window and then we can stop.
Hello?
Okay.
Vinita,
Okay.
Hello?
yeah, Vinita, we can hear you, but can we please take it offline because we
Hello?
have two questions at the chat window? Thank you. Resham, we have one question which says, what would be your advice for people looking for career change? What would be the best approach?
This is the one which is slightly tough. I think you will have to get your foot in the door, because the reality of it is, you learn what you learn. Once you change your career is when you really start off on new skills. So you really have to find what is that. If there is an intersection point between your old career and new career, great. If not, then you have to find, what is the easiest way to get your foot in the door, because that might be just the way that you will be able to build skills as we go forward. So that's a tough one. And again, I don't know the background as to what are you trying to, like, if it's from a totally different stream that you're trying to get into IT or vice versa. I think it like if I want to open a restaurant today, I need to learn how to work in a kitchen first, and I'll have to go step by step. So there's no easy way to do it. I would just say unless and until there is an intersection point between what I do and what the restaurant business needs, for example. So I think this is a tough one, which you'll have to assess what's the best way to get your foot in the door.
Okay, that answers that question. Thank you. The next
Okay.
question is, does JC Penney have a returnee program?
Does JCPenney have a what?
Have
Returnee program? No, we don't have a returnee program, but we definitely are looking for strong technologists across the roles and board. So we are not like really, there is no penalization of any candidate because they have been on a break.
Okay, that's great to hear, Resham. And another different question I have is there some work from home options or flexible working hours with JCPenney?
Yes, we are a flexible company, but at the same time, I'll say, this is a place where I always tell my colleagues also is not every job should be taken up with that understand or without that understanding that flexibility means, yes, there could be some days where I may need to do things differently, but because most of the jobs that we have have are team jobs or jobs that require you to work with other people. I think working from home or flexibility is an option which should be exercised judiciously. So it shouldn't be, I don't think we are a company which is offering work from home as a permanent option, but we are definitely flexible and open to making adjustments. Like if I have a parent-teacher meeting, which of course I told you I don't go to, but if if I decided that I had to go to that one, I don't think the company is going to say, oh, no, you cannot take these 2 hours off because it was a parent-teacher meeting or because you had to go to school. So I think that level of flexibility is definitely there, but it's at the same time, because these are team jobs, I think there is limitation as to how far you can go with it.
Got that, Resham. That answers that. We have a question from a fresher or just who have completed their graduation. Their question is there any trainee programs at JCPenney from where they can get some experience on?
So right now we are actually going to open up more towards freshers next year. This year we are focused on, because this is a new office, we are really focused on, and like some of the earlier questions I mentioned, I think we need to hit the ground running really fast. So we are looking at making sure we have everything we need from a skill perspective, where we are getting in more laterals, but next year onwards, we are definitely thinking of starting more of a college graduation, because again, I think the idea there being is there will need to be some time investment into, making sure the graduates are uh, getting all the support that they need from their seniors.
Yes, I think that answers that question, Resham. Resham, we already shot the time over limit. So would you still take up some more questions, or would we like to end it here?
I would just have to run to another one, Shweta, and I really appreciate all of you taking the time to come for this session. And yeah, I would love to stay in touch with all of you. So do ping me and let's stay connected.
That's great, Resham. Thank you for giving an insight for your wonderful journey that you've had so far. And it's been very inspirational and motivational and a very huge learning for us. So thank you once again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Reshma.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.